Bowl season is here. Are you ready to cash in on what you know? Where you play is as important as what you play. The pros play at mybookie.ag. All the lines, odds, and plays, both college and pro, all at mybookie.ag. Play where you get paid super fast and there's never a hassle. Step up and mybookie.ag will match your deposit with up to a 50% bonus. Use promo code JJ50 to activate the offer. Don't leave the money on the table. mybookie.ag, promo code JJ50, and your first deposit is matched up to 50%. Play where the pros play because they get paid. mybookie.ag.
And now, Jalen and Jacoby on ESPN Radio.
When I pop the trunk, head the dirt. Y'all pop the trunk, I pop the hood. Now act stupid, I'll pop the trunk. Now give me your boom.
He is Jalen Rose.
What up, dope?
I'm David Jacoby.
And on the cool check-in, center stage on the mic.
And we putting it on wax.
We're Jalen and Jacoby on ESPN Radio. What do we do?
Give the people what they want. Come on, Rich.
He wants to put the new style in there.
You know what I love about this podcast? And I'm not about to go to Rel Reavers, but come on,
that's fine.
Reg.
Go
What's
to Rel
up with the new
Reavers.
style?
Go to Rel Reavers because we always will have exclusive content for our podcast listeners. We're not just going to give you the TV, but part of that exclusive content is going behind the scenes. Now, when we do the TV show, we do the intro a certain way. We don't own Beastie Boys.
The podcast listeners deserve to hear us argue like a married couple.
Yep.
They deserve to hear what's going on behind the scenes. And since Reggie is a celebrity, when we do that at the beginning of the show, he's supposed to say it's the new style.
Do it again. Let's do it again. Ready, Reg?
No.
He is Jalen Rose.
No, because he's going to fix it.
I promise you, Reggie's going to edit this all out, knowing that we don't listen to the podcast. He's going to edit it all out, and he's going to fix it and make it perfect. He's going to leave this all out. Oh, I love this staff. This staff involves a lot more than Jalen Rose, David Jacoby, and Reggie Hooks. Just need everybody listening to know that. We got at least 10, 12 people that work on this and make it is what it is. We will always leave you with a dope pod to step to, even if we don't have radio on Mondays. Don't forget, you got to subscribe to our television show and our podcast. If you're listening to the podcast right now, make sure you DVR the television show. It's on every single night on ESPN2 and all through the night into the morning on ESPN News. It's been a crazy weekend. You know, first, Melo got traded. Donald Trump disinvited the Warriors who weren't coming anyway to the White House. And then Dwayne Wade got bought out, and then every single superstar in the NBA put their little Nike uniforms on and addressed the media and had different things to say. And not to mention, we had one of the most exciting 30-minute stretches in NFL history. I don't have the red zone at my house, and I've got a bunch of children around there, so I don't watch this stretch of Sunday at my house. I go to a local watering hole where they've got all the different TVs up, and at the same time, we had the Patriots with a comeback win. The Eagles hitting a 61-yard field goal from a rookie. And the Steelers losing to the Bears. It was crazy. I think I'm even forgetting a game. Oh, wait. There was a Lions game, too.
Yeah.
While all of this was happening, the Lions, they had a good chance of coming back. They really did. Like, they had multiple pass interference penalties that helped them get down the field. They were within the 10-yard line. I think they had penalties that brought them back like to 1st and 33 or something, and then a couple pass interference brought them back up. They had opportunities to win. And everyone wants to focus on the last play. I know we're going to talk about the last play. But, Jalen, as a Lions fan, I know you watched this game. I know you watched as closely as I did. I watched the fourth quarter because I want to be in tune with my brother, Jalen Rose. Let me tell you something. The Lions lost that game. They lost by the law of the rules, and they had plenty of opportunities to put that ball in the end zone. And some of them were certainly helped by the Falcons' defense pass interference.
First and foremost, the rule is questionable that you're going to run 10 seconds off of the clock.
Okay, I'm glad we're talking about this instead of the knee. The knee was down and the ball was not in the end zone. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, and I completely with you. See, as long as we agree on that, then we can have an adult discussion about this. The 10-second rule is the rule I have a problem with.
That's where I was going, because I understand that you want to keep that rule in play for people faking injuries and other circumstances that take place in the game, that you don't want to reward that type of behavior. But in the spirit of the league, for a team that's driving down the field and has an opportunity to score, and then actually get the ball in the end zone, it's called a touchdown on the field. You have to have conclusive evidence to overturn it, which you just acknowledged, and I agree with you, though a Lions fan, that you can see that he was down before the ball went over the goal line. I would have liked to see the Lions get another play.
I think that with Matthew Stafford at the helm, a veteran quarterback, had they called that short of the end zone and they set the ball and started the clock, they would have spiked the ball as his fourth down. They would have ran some sort of play. He would have gotten the ball into his hands and stepped back into the pocket with time still on the clock. It does not take 10 seconds to set the offense and hike the ball, especially under those circumstances with a veteran quarterback and you've got all professional football players who know exactly what it is. They would have gotten that last play off in less than 10 seconds. Also, there was 8 seconds on the clock. I watched it again and again. When the whistle was blown and when the arms went up for a touchdown, there was still 10 seconds on the clock. So it was questionable.
And the series of events that transpired, it eliminates the players deciding who wins versus the officials, and in this case, the rule dictated the winner. And that's something that you hate to see in sports on all levels. I would have loved to see exactly what you said, because Matthew Stafford has more comeback wins in the fourth quarter the last couple of years than any quarterback in the NFL. So I would have loved to see that last play transpire as opposed to the game ending the way it did.
Of course, and I think 10 seconds might be just too much time of a runoff to assume that a quarterback of his stature can't get the line and the receivers in place. At that point, he could probably even communicate a play with a hand signal, or just it's just like, hey man, I'm just going to look at my best receiver and wait till he makes a move. But something would have happened. And also, Jalen, let's be honest, let's be real. When you're watching the game and you saw Tate catch that slant and fall in the end zone, you thought it was a touchdown, right?
I did think it was a touchdown. So a couple of things were happening on that play. So first and foremost, it's football Sunday. So Molly and I are full tailgate mode.
Okay.
No question about it. The grill is going. The oven is going.
What's your TV setup, though? You have one TV to watch on?
The TV setup is Red Zone and or one of our teams.
Okay.
Okay, that's what we do. But the thing is, both of our teams were playing the 1 o'clock game.
I know, and both of them were losing in heartbreak fashion at the exact same time.
Correct. And so as the 61-yard field goal was happening and the Eagles were beating her Giants, my Lions were enduring the type of heartbreaking loss that you just said. So, man, also, it was a tough day at the spot.
Let me tell you something. The Lions, Matt Prater can kick the ball, man. He saves the Lions every single week.
And
he really does.
Here's the thing, the gift and the curse about having a better half that's not only a true sports fan that clearly works in the sporting industry. Watching the game, tailgating, playing footsies and everything, smiling and giggling.
Do you put clothes on, or you still got PJs on? Y'all just wearing some athleisure around the house?
And just think about it. They scored 3 touchdowns in the second half. Odell scored 2. Mm-hmm. He's on our fantasy team. We play against Draymond Green this week. Prater had a big day as the kicker. And so all of a sudden, we go from that scene that I just described to don't talk to me ever. I'm like, oh, well, okay.
Wish you had a dog you could walk or something.
Right, exactly. I'm like, man, this was going to turn out to be a great day.
Jalen Rose, we are going to get to Carmelo joining the Thunder, Wade no longer on the Bulls, and a very disappointing week for the Lions. But we have to start with the Don't Get Fired topic of the day.
And now, the Don't Get Fired topic of the day.
It was the day after the election, right around the election. One of your first responses was, well, I guess that means that NBA and NFL teams will not be visiting the White House. Steph Curry joined The Jump last Friday and mentioned that he would probably not accept an invitation to the White House. In response to that, the President of the United States tweeted this. The White House is considered a great honor for a championship team. At Steph Curry 30 is hesitating. Therefore, invitation is withdrawn. Jalen, this is broken news to everybody that routinely watches and listens to this program. But what is your reaction to this tweet from the President of the United States at Steph Curry?
I continue to be disappointed at the behavior. And again, by no means is it a disrespect to the office, because I respect that position. It's just unfortunate that our commander in tweets continues time and time again to get out his Twitter fingers and or his voice when microphones are in front of him and say inflammatory things, derogatory things, and or things that should be beneath what his ultimate goal is, and that should be to run the country. And like he said during his slogan running for presidency, make America great again. Yep. The problem with that is I'm big on tags and reading beneath the lines. And so when I talked about NBA, NFL players not going to the White House, I was talking about a power, a unity, individuals that have followings, that have been successful in their own rights, that are socially and politically conscious in their own way. And those sports are predominantly black. Yep. And when you look at the landscape of the professional sports, NASCAR, Major League Baseball, other sports that can be mentioned, they don't carry that same dynamic. And when you run a campaign that continues into your presidency, where you alienate and you continue to name call so many different people, all of a sudden you become the president of the United States. He has the lowest approval rate of any president in 70 years. He didn't win the popular vote. There will be people that are upset about it. They're in the NBA uniforms. There were times where people boycotted staying in Trump-branded hotels. And I knew once the invitation to NBA and NFL players got extended, except for the Patriots, who, by the way, Robert Kraft, along with 7 other owners, are actually Trump supporters that probably were kicking themselves when he called their players SOBs. All of a sudden, it's great to see players exercise their American right to have a voice and opinion for things that they're against.
To me, this is interesting. I'm not sure if this is strategy or accidental, but what this creates is a distraction from the looming nuclear threat in North Korea, the huge natural disasters that affected millions of people, especially right now in Puerto Rico and Texas and Florida, and the healthcare reform bill being shot down on Friday. Whether it is strategy or it was just coincidental, it seems like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to call Stephen Curry names, and then I'm going to tell him that he's not invited to the White House when he says that he's not going to come anyway. It just seems like this is all a tactic, a distraction. It's working because you can see over the weekend the news cycle was dominated by his relationship to sports, not necessarily his relationship to running the country. You and I have our own responses to this. LeBron James had a very peculiar response to this on Twitter when he woke up and found out what Trump had said about Steph Curry. LeBron James tweeted, quote, "You bum. At Stephen Curry 30 already said he ain't going, so therefore ain't no invite. Going to White House was a great honor until you showed up." Jalen Rose, we all know LeBron James is very careful with his words. He could have easily put out a clean, PR-friendly, grammatically correct message, but he didn't. He used this language instead. Why did he use this language?
Calling a spade, because our president is someone that continues to disrespect others by creating nicknames for them. As you just mentioned, Rocket Man, Crooked Hillary, Lion Ted. I could name 500,000 nicknames or derogatory things that he said to and or about someone else. Yep. And the unfortunate thing with him sending out these divisive messages, it could do 2 things. It could unite us or it could divide us. And I saw it happen both ways. And here's what I mean. From NFL and NBA player standpoints, you're going to now see us and them rallied together. You see now other people that he's trying to feed, because there is a base of people, and he was in Huntsville, Alabama, that actually cheers what he says. There is a base of people that actually likes those tweets and retweets those things. And so now when you see those in NASCAR who fit that demo that he continues to fan the flames for their fire,
for the most part,
come out and say, oh, for those who don't want to stand for the flag, and then now they want to pile on as well, it now creates that divide that I was talking about in the demo of who plays and or participates in those professional sports.
Well, when he was done uninviting the Warriors, who weren't going to come anyway to the White House, he turned his attentions toward the NFL, as you mentioned, at a speech in Huntsville, Alabama. Let's listen.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired!
The name calling for someone's job, and saying that they're disrespecting the flag. What is your reaction when you heard this from the President of the United States?
My reaction when his tagline was, Make America Great Again, and I've said it on this program, Make America Great Again was an undertone to a lot of individuals to say, Make America White Again. And so when you look at what he just said, he called the NFL players somebody, but he referred to the flag, he said, our flag. And so he did an immediate distinction because he understood the audience that he was feeding. And this is the audience that he's been feeding his entire campaign, now as the president. And this behavior and this name calling, I don't think would have been as prevalent or discussed had he not used SOB. Had he just said what he said without that term, I don't think the NFL does a statement. I don't think some of the owners do a statement. And in looking deeper into some of the statements by the owners, they didn't necessarily distance or denounce him individually. They just talked about the words that he said. And so I looked a lot deeper than just the actual face value of what was said in those statements.
And in that use of that terminology from the president did incite a sort of a bigger, in terms of volume, and a different protest from NFL players and teams over the weekend. Interlocked arms on almost all players. Certain players knelt down. The Steelers stayed inside the locker room, which I thought was a really interesting symbolism during the national anthem. And when you were watching all of this, I have a question for you. Something came to my mind. Were you surprised that you didn't see more Caucasian white players kneeling for the national anthem? There were certainly the interlocking the arms and showing a brotherhood with their teammates. But when you look at the images themselves of the kneeling players, you really didn't see that many white players. Were you surprised by this? Because I was.
The change that starts to happen in our country that we hope for is not necessarily when people that look like me talk to their blue in the face about the bigotry and oppression that we've endured and continue to endure in our own ways in this country. It's when they look like you. And I agree with you. I would have liked to see that, but also, just like Colin Kaepernick, who, in theory, a lot of ways should be somewhere proud of himself, because he now sparked something that's become way bigger than his actual issues that he was initially protesting. Because we're not talking about why he was protesting anymore.
Injustice, equality, police brutality, things of that nature.
Absolutely. And also, for us to be having this conversation moves the dialogue, and that's what a protest is designed to do, make people uncomfortable. Now, since the information is out there and we understand that this is taking place, it's for us to have this dialogue, but also create change.
Jalen Rose, I know this little radio show is small time for you, your little side hustle that you do with your friend late at night. You know, I know what you think about this. When you're on big shows, will you wear a tie on Countdown and suits? And you were on Mike and Mike this morning, all dressed up in your cardigan and your tie, and you broke my heart. Let's listen.
The NBA's on fire right now.
I agree with that.
And if they were at a stoplight with the NFL, the NBA pulled off in a Lamborghini while the NFL is driving a minivan.
What?
Jalen. Jalen.
First off,
Jalen Anthony Rose. What is my nickname?
The capo of the minivan mafia.
I am the minivan man. I proudly drive a minivan that you've been inside. And you're going to go on the big show with your little tie, and you're going to slander minivans to national audience.
You're right. That was disrespectful because you weren't there to defend yourself. But this isn't a side hustle at all. You have too much pride to be a side piece.
But you just got demoted to my side piece after that minivan slander. That's all I can say. Moving on. Dwayne Wade is officially no longer a Chicago Bull. They have reached a buyout where Dwayne Wade took about an $8 million haircut.
That's a lot of money.
Sounds like Melo and Russell Westbrook are trying to get him to join the Thunder. We've also got Magic tampering and texting, trying to get him to be a Laker. Riley wants a reconciliation to bring him back down to Miami, but you have him already on the Cleveland Cavaliers. Has any of this swayed your opinion that he will be a Cleveland Cavalier?
Are the Lakers going to the playoffs?
No.
So they're out.
Okay. But Magic on the text? Come on.
Would he start for OKC?
Maybe a couple games if someone got hurt.
They're out.
Okay.
The Miami Heat divorce, was that amicable?
Nah, that was not amicable.
Okay. No surprises. He will end up in the Cleveland Cavaliers uniform playing with LeBron James.
Take a quick look at these numbers, though. This is what teams have to offer Dwayne Wade, who has to make more than $2.3 million based on the minimum. Miami can give him 4.2. The Spurs can give him 3.3. The Cavs can give him 2.5, and Oklahoma City can give him the minimum. Does any of that sway your thinking in any way?
It doesn't sway my thinking in any way. It's good to hear that the Spurs are in play for a guy like Dwayne Wade, which on paper seems like an interesting marriage. Yeah. But going to the Spurs means you got to deal with those problems in the West. Mm-hmm. Going to play with LeBron James, you're playing with the Nikon that has had a rite of passage to win the Eastern Conference, including playing with you for 7 straight years. This is where he ends up. The curiosity I have, however, unlike Carmelo Anthony, will Dwayne Wade at this point of his career be a starter?
JR's taking a seat. JR's taking a seat. You know JR's taking a seat, and Dwayne Wade's going to start the game. How they split up the minutes, I'm not sure, but something tells me LeBron's going to go to JR and just be like, he's old, man. He's got a lot of pride. I'll give you all the threes you want, okay? I promise you 1.5 as many shots as last year. You're just going to have to do it at different times in the game. Moving on, we have some broken news.
To everyone else, it's breaking news. To Jalen and Jacoby listeners, it's broken
news to the sports world, not news those that watch and listen to this program every day. As you predicted quite some time ago, Enes Kanter, Doug McDermott, and a future second-round pick have been shipped to New York, and Carmelo Anthony is now on the Thunder. With the addition of Paul George and Anthony, the Thunder certainly look more formidable than they did last year. Where do you think this move puts them in the hierarchy of the Western Conference?
It puts them in the top 4, and don't be surprised if it puts them even higher.
Oh.
What? Because the Golden State Warriors obviously are in a different stratosphere.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. You want to write off the San Antonio Spurs, but they find ways to keep winning games.
I've already written off the Spurs
this year. In particular in the regular season.
I've written off the Spurs this year.
The Houston Rockets added Chris Paul this offseason. The Minnesota Timberwolves are going to make a leap from a lottery team to possibly a top 4 or top 5 team.
And don't sleep on the Clippers, too.
And so, on paper, I really love what Sam Presti has done to continue.
Oh, I know.
And remix his roster from losing James Harden, who's an MVP candidate, to losing KD, who was Finals MVP this past year, to developing Russell Westbrook into the league's MVP. It's truly impressive.
I wanted to ask you something about that, because I, too, have just been shocked by how Sam Presti has taken these players, the Oladipos and McDermotts, and putting them in deals to bring in these superstars. However, both of these superstars and Russell Westbrook, who hasn't signed an extension, could all just poof and be gone at the end of this season. Like, isn't this a big gamble for him, saying, if I bring them in for 1 year, they will love it here so much that they will stay?
It works both ways. It eliminates what will I need to do at the end of next year, because if what you just acknowledged happens, you get a chance to start all over.
Mm-hmm. You don't even have to tank. It's going to happen naturally. Like, you don't have to worry about it.
And also, your fans understand that you did more than enough to try to keep a quality team in tow. And they will look sideways at the players if they decide to leave, not necessarily complain about ownership or management not being able to put the requisite parts around their best player.
Of course. LeBron James addressed the media today, and of course, he talked about Donald Trump, and he talked about Isaiah Thomas, and he talked about the future with the Cavs. He also talked about, losing Kyrie Irving. Let's listen to how he addressed it.
Try to do whatever I could do to help the kid out, be the best player he can be. And I wish the kid great health, and the kid wanted to do what was best for his, for his career. I try to do whatever I could, just try to help the kid be as great as he could be or as great as he wanted to be, and that's it.
This is so disrespectful. Yeah. Like he is such a sneak disser. Like he will just low key just kind of hit you without directly coming at you. Yeah. To call Kyrie Irving the kid 8 times over the course of 30 seconds to me is a huge, but also super subtle disrespect towards Kyrie. What do you think about their relationship?
What he was basically saying is he made his decision to leave the Cleveland Cavaliers for selfish reasons and to put himself in a position to be the best player on the team, which would not happen while running with LeBron James. And instead of calling his behavior childish, he continued to call him a kid. That was something that clearly was premeditated.
Absolutely premeditated. Jalen Rose, is there a sound that encapsulates the way you feel about the Lions' performance on Sunday?
Yeah.
No roar this week? What happened?
I'm a little disappointed at how that game transpired, in particular on the last play.
We will talk about the 10-second runoff in the NFL. But before that, I just want to acknowledge, as someone who closely watches Lions game, just to support you and support the Detroit community, they had a lot of opportunities to win that game. And they were given a lot of opportunities from pass interference calls, from lazy defense from the Falcons. They were given opportunities to win that game. It does not just come down to this one play. But we want to make sure we're on the same page. You know that the knee was down before the ball crossed the plane of the end zone, correct?
I do. And again, I'm not a fan or a supporter that blindly just says things for his team because he has a microphone. Mm-hmm. I do feel like he fell short of the goal line. However, again, there were still 8 seconds on the game clock. And so for that rule to be a runoff, and I get it, there are times in the game late, at the end of a half, at the end of the game, where players fake injuries.
Of course.
And different things happen to where you have to institute that. But ultimately, I would have liked to see the players on a 4th down with Matthew Stafford under center, who's had more come from behind wins the last few years than any quarterback, actually have an opportunity to win the game, not necessarily lose it based on the final play, the way it transpired.
I think that the Rules Committee has to look at this and say, would it have taken Matthew Stafford and that Lions offense 10 seconds to line up and run a play? Because I think the answer is no, especially it wasn't a long bomb. They didn't have to run down. They all just had to move forward 3 yards, get set, and hike the ball. Whether or not they called a play, they didn't have to spike it because it was 4th down. Obviously, they wouldn't do that. But it just felt to me that 10 seconds was too much of a runoff. Also, you mentioned there was 8 seconds on the clock. I saw the referee's hands go up to signal a touchdown right around 11 to 10 seconds. So it seemed like even more time transpired than after the whistle was blown that they were also penalized for. I think this rule needs to change based on this one instance alone, and somebody tells me you agree with me.
I definitely agree. And it'll be interesting to see if it happens next season. Mm-hmm. This is one thing that the NBA and Adam Silver has really been doing a great job of since he's become commissioner. Seeing a problem, addressing a problem immediately.
I have something to say. I know you don't believe in moral victories, but I have to say this. I did not expect the Lions to be that close to the Falcons, and the Falcons look like the best team in the NFC. The Lions are not that far behind. You're not going to give them a roar? No roar? Roar!
Meow.
It was an absolutely fascinating NFL Sunday. We'll continue to break it down tomorrow because there was just so much going on with, the Twitter fingers, the commander tweets just coming directly at people, and calling for people's firings and name calling and protests around the NFL. That we'll break down the sports part of NFL Sunday tomorrow. But one thing we always want to do is give the people what they want. Part of giving the people what they want is opening up our 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed and our voice mailbox. If you call 985-80-JALEN, you can leave us a voicemail, and we'll play it on the show just like this.
Yo, Jalen, Jacoby, what up, though? First off, I got to give a shout-out to Jalen for unblocking me on Twitter. We're a real one for that. Shout out. Shout out to Reggie, too. Also, this is my question. Not also, but this is my question. With OKC acquiring Carmelo Anthony, does this hurt the Lakers' chances of getting Russell Westbrook and Paul George? Let me know. Keep giving the people what they want. Shout out.
Love that guy. I got questions, Jalen. I got questions. Because, we don't have the time restrictions that we have on television. So here are my questions. You got Russell Westbrook, who's got the biggest contract that could possibly be given him right in front of him with a pen sitting right next to it saying, sign this, commit to Oklahoma City. He recruited Carmelo Anthony along with Paul George to waive the no-trades clause so he could come there. He's got Paul George, who's also rumored to be interested in going to the Lakers. All of their contracts are up in a year until Russell Westbrook signs. This just seems dicey. It just seems like a house of cards to me in Oklahoma City.
It doesn't seem as fragile to me because you just talked about a dynamic of him recruiting players to come run with him, which is a mentality that it shows me that he's adopted, that he's going to find a way to win where he is. You've heard Damian Lillard come out and say something to the same effect about playing in
nobody or whatever.
So because of that, I do think he ultimately signs his contract when you see an organization that's going to continue to maneuver and put pieces around you to put you in a position to be successful. And, however, got to get a statue. You jump up and you bounce from OKC, no statue.
No statue. Do you get a statue with no championship, though? Because I could definitely see him playing there for another 10 years and not getting a championship.
Yes, you've seen people without championships get a statue. Dominique Wilkins has one. In Atlanta, he's one of the top 50 players of all time, or he should be. And he deserved it. And so I see Russell Westbrook as the kind of player that won't have the OKC fans endure what they felt when KD left. I just don't see that happening in the near future. No. Okay. And so here's the thing. And I don't want people out there to start taking my kindness for weakness or think I'm soft. Shout to him for being a fan of the program. That really means a lot to us.
Absolutely.
And one day he probably had a Twitter fingers thing going. He felt like he wanted to take a shot at me because usually the only people that I block, I'm going to be real simple, is like I 3-4 years ago would post something that's serious, whether it's with my kids or whether it's about the school. And if I get back a response that's
81
or even a disrespect or a name call or something like that, I'm not blocking because of the message. I'm blocking about how I felt like you were being rude to me. So over the last few years, when people ask, I've unblocked almost everybody.
Good for you, Jalen. Good.
Because I don't block really people anymore because fortunately for me, I just don't have people like sending me crazy things via social media that warrant that.
Yeah. So you travel the country a lot. You're very familiar with the different American cities. And I just want you to know that next time you're in Charlotte, we've got something for you. There's a spa. We both, as I got older, I never went to a thing called a spa until like 2 years ago. Now I love a spa day.
Don't get fired.
I love a spa day. Okay? Charlotte has a spa that offers a breast milk facial. Jalen Rose, I know you love breast milk.
America.
I know you love breast milk. Next time you're in Charlotte, will you be getting a breast milk facial? And not the kind that you got in the strip club in Detroit 20 years ago.
How about this? I'm going to take it a step further.
Oh, don't. But please don't.
Charlotte is one of those places a lot of times in my travels that I can use as a connection city. Mm-hmm. I'm going to start doing it now.
No. Just because they got an airport hub for an airline. You're flying from here to there. Just have to stop off in Charlotte, get out the airport for a little bit, get that breast milk facial at the spa.
I'll be there.
Next question that we have is from Mark. He says, do NBA general managers just sit back and listen to Jalen Jacoby and say, yeah, that sounds like a good trade to do, and then do it?
Well, here's the thing. We appreciate you acknowledging that you are able to get the news here first.
No doubt.
So, for example, when the NFL institutes a rule that you must wrap up to tackle, you're going to say, wow, I heard Jacoby talking about that 10 years ago.
Yeah, it will be about 5 years from now, but that is what's going to happen.
When you see the NBA have open seating in the playoffs, 1 through 16 are the best teams actually in the postseason, you're going to know where you heard it first. Mm-hmm. Usually, where broken news comes from, for those that truly don't understand how we're able to talk about things before they take place, is in order to be at the bottom of the ticker and break news, I must say 2 sources that gave me the information.
Yeah, you got to show the phone.
And I'm Tom Brady with the phone.
Tom Brady with the phone.
And so, therefore, do you want to be a guy that's able to break news as an analyst? That would be a good look for my gig.
Sure.
But I'm able to do it on the program anyway. You just call it broken news and do it unprofessionally.
Exactly. Another thing is you were the very first person to see the president get elected and then see how it was going to directly affect sports via the White House. And what has ballooned from that is a controversy that is now sort of sports versus the White House. And it really just all started with this tradition of a White House visit and this invitation being rescinded, which I believe had a lot to do with the president's NFL comments in Huntsville, Alabama as well.
No question about it. And he is feeding an audience. And the audience, as you mentioned, are those that when he made those comments, they were cheering. Mm-hmm. When he sends those tweets, they're liking them. They're retweeting them. They're the people, and again, I respect the office of the presidency. I'm talking about his behavior in that chair. When you become somebody that continues to name call and doesn't seem to have a level of respect for people that don't agree with you, it's one thing when you're talking about religion or politics, the 2 things that they say that you shouldn't talk about if you don't want to get an adverse response, especially in a room full of strangers. Well, sports mushrooms the opposite way. The dynamics of a locker room and or a team, there are things that are said, there are tears that are shed, there are conversations that are had, that we respect one another. We're able to agree to disagree because we all understand, just like society, we should have one common goal in mind. It's okay to agree to disagree, but still respect one another. So now all of a sudden he's galvanized the sports world. And it's going to be interesting to see how this continues to foster, because there will be more players, more teams in the NBA, in the NFL, that deny the opportunity to go to the White House. However, let me tell you 8 NFL teams that might not just do so. Robert Kraft and the Pats. Oh, wait. They went. Oh, as a matter of fact, they gave him a championship ring. How long ago was that? Oh, that was really recent.
Mm-hmm. Some of the Patriots did not attend.
Jerry Jones of the Cowboys. Stan Kroenke of the Rams. Dan Snyder of the Washington football team. Shahid Khan of the Jaguars, Woody Johnson of the Jets, Bob McNair of the Texans, and Ed Glazier of the Bucks. They were looked at a little bit sideways when they walked into the locker room of SOBs that play for their football teams, as the president called them. There's, I think, Lamar Hunt of the Kansas City Chiefs, who we haven't reported, but off wax went behind the scenes and told everyone in the organization that they will stand for the flag or they will be out of town. This is the level of ownership that Trump sees should take place, like they're overseers. And so now all of a sudden, in the NBA players, NFL players, we've been emboldened. We've been empowered. And so now that unity is going to be something that truly drives the narrative moving forward.